Mobile gaming is a weird beast and a touchy topic when it comes to gaming in general. No matter how good a mobile game is, it can't help but be lumped together with the onslaught of predatory apps that make you pay to breathe while the app is open. But back before the turn of the decade in 2009, Apple's App Store was like 90s PC gaming, Wild West-like in nature because an entirely new platform opened up and people really weren't sure what to do with it. Naturally, a ton of people threw everything they had at a wall to see what stuck and struck gold. Nazi Zombies, Dead Rising, freaking Resident Evil 4 all had iOS ports, but the games that stuck were games like Angry Birds and Cut the Rope. Simple, efficient, time-wasting puzzle games that utilized the touchscreen in simple ways so that even the normies could figure out how to play. And while I have nothing against either of these games, even I had an Angry Birds phase at one point, I always felt like some of the best examples of mobile games slipped through the cracks. Games like Zombieville USA and Minigore ate up a ton of my friends and my time when they first came out, but even those games were pretty simple. Fun, but simple. At that point, there weren't too many deep games with overarching stories or console-quality ports without serious issues. So when this game called Superbrothers Sword and Sworcery EP fell onto the scene for iPad in 2011, it took many people by surprise, including myself. It was totally different from most mobile games that came before it because it was built from the ground up for touchscreen, as opposed to cramming console ports with touch controls onto your phone or iPad. The game also had a really cool integration built in with Twitter. Twitter was incorporated deeply into the genetic code of the game. All of the text and dialogue in the game is broken up into snippets of 140 characters or less, the tweet limit at the time. This was so cool because you could follow players along on their journey by searching the Sword and Sworcery hashtag and read what they were discovering, almost like a journal or a storybook. I'm sure some of the text was wildly confusing and weird for people who had no idea what Sword and Sworcery was at the time, but for the players who were in on it, it was so cool. Superbrothers Sword and Sworcery EP was a game that was on my radar from the get-go because of the art style, the music, and just how different it was from anything else for mobile at the time. So when the game finally made its way to Android a year and a half after coming to iPad and iPhone, I downloaded it. But as I rarely ever played handheld games with sound on out of fear of disturbing everyone around me, I never really played it. It just didn't feel right to play the game in silence because it sucked the atmosphere out of the game like a vacuum. So naturally, I just kind of forgot about it until 2018, a whole 6 years later, when a port of the game was coming to the Switch. Once again, I totally forgot about it for a while until I saw it on sale in the eShop where I scooped it up and promised I would actually play it. And I finally did. At its core, Superbrothers Sword and Sworcery EP is a point-and-click adventure game, but it's so much more than that. The gameplay, the music, and the art style are all intertwined beautifully, and after dropping the game in 2012, I definitely agree in retrospect that had I played the game muted and silently, it would have kneecapped half of the experience. There are also some differences between the original and the Switch port, which I'll get into in a bit. Some are big changes, and some are smaller, but we'll look at all of it. In Superbrothers Sword and Sworcery EP, you play as a mysterious character known only as the Scythian, a girl who arrives at a mountain countryside to fulfill a woeful errand, which slowly unfolds and makes itself clear over time. You begin the story by meeting a girl named Samay, only known as Girl in the original mobile release. You also meet a man cutting wood known as Logfella, and his canine companion, Dogfella. Logfella accompanies you on your ascent up the mountain to Minji-Ta, where you are on a quest to find a book of thoughts called the Megatome. On your own, you go into the cave where the book lies, and after releasing the book from the clutches of a dark being with an antlered skull's skeleton, an evil force is unleashed. After escaping the near fate of being absorbed by the being, dark clouds appear above the mountainside. You investigate the book and discover that it has strange markings and symbols, and it records all the thoughts of all the characters around you. This is where the first of 4 chapters end. The intermissions between the chapters are presented by a character known as the Archetype, who explains that everything that comes next will be a series of tests and trials that the Scythian must overcome to complete her grim task. Once the next chapter starts, you can read the thoughts of Samay, Logfella, the Archetype, and even Dogfella, which is very clever and fun to read. These recorded thoughts can either be fun or give you clues as to what you need to do next and how to do things. The writing in this game, from the Archetype's table setting to the thoughts you read in the Megatome, walk the line between pretentious and sarcastic, which is a compliment, believe it or not. A lot of what you read is meant to confuse you, but right before you start to think, maybe this game is above my 4th grade reading level, the game asks you, are you confused yet? Good. A lot of things are confusing before they get good. This is also where a massive difference between the Switch port and the original game starts to make itself evident. See, when you start the game, the archetype explains that a lot has changed since the original game came out for iPad, and in hindsight, the devs decided that social media has become a massive catastrophe for the world, and as such, all connections to networks outside of the game have been severed. They say they encourage isolation and self-reflection this time around. Of course, you can always take screenshots and post them yourself from the Switch's gallery, but the share feature isn't baked into the game anymore, despite the fact that all of the text is still 140 characters. What most of the game boils down to is reassembling the 3 Trigons into the Trigon Trifecta, definitely not the Triforce, which will give the Scythian the power to complete her errand. This involves a real-time system where you have to wait for lunar cycles to come and go on the calendar year, while also entering the dreams of Logfella and Same to progress the story. And if that doesn't make any sense, yeah, it's not supposed to yet. This isn't your typical hero's journey. You don't get upgrades and you don't get stronger as you go. Rather, the Scythian becomes weaker as the toll of time travel and battling begins to take its toll on her. This immense weight starts to break her down and cause her harm, and it's genuinely tough to see happening. I don't really want to spoil the game past this because I don't want to rob anyone from experiencing what this game has to offer. So instead I'll talk about how this game made me feel and how it did so. I mentioned the atmosphere before. When you traverse the countryside and the dreamscapes, you start to realize just how beautiful and well-detailed and alive this world is. I never really utilized the screenshot feature on my Switch to just take photos, but I took a bunch of screenshots that will definitely become my computer background. I just love the way this game looks. It's definitely a candidate in the "are video games art" debate. They are. But as I said earlier, the art and the music go hand in hand, and losing one means deflating the other. The tracks that play in the background also serve as a reminder for the underlying darkness of the tone of the game. This isn't meant to be a happy jaunt through the woods, but rather a story of sacrifice, and the calm you feel is soon to be met with tension and struggle. Jim Guthrie did an outstanding job of crafting a soundscape here, and the soundtrack is one of the best scores to a video game I've ever heard. It's simple yet so effective. The game just puts a pit in your stomach as you play and approach tense situations with the Scythian. It's right up there with Celeste and Sayonara Wild Hearts for me, and if you want to, you can find it on Spotify. I'll put the link in the description too. But lastly, I'll talk about gameplay on the Switch and briefly about what I remember from the tablet version. The tablet and phone version of the game was a point-and-click adventure through and through. This is widely maintained in the Switch version, but you have a bunch of different control methods that let you use physical buttons on handheld as well as playing on the TV. The cool thing about this game is that there are 2 different gameplay elements, world navigation and battling. On iOS and Android, you switch between these 2 by turning the tablet or phone from landscape into portrait mode. On Switch, it is down to a button press, which is fine, I don't have any complaints about it, but it's not as cool. Also, on Switch you control movement with the right stick and the pointer with the left, which takes some getting used to, but it's usable. If you feel like you need an as authentic experience as possible, like playing the original game, you're going to have to play in handheld mode, which I recommend. It's a little bit less clunky and a little bit more in line with how the game originally played. But no matter how you play Superbrothers Sword and Sworcery EP, the experience is still there, and I'm happy I finally played it. While it only takes about 5-ish hours to complete, the story and the message and the music sticks with you far longer than that. It's a story of morality and sacrifice and doing the right thing even when it can be hard. And for me, that's what I take away and what I'll look back on fondly. Thank you so much for watching this video, I really appreciate you watching. If you like the video, be sure to leave a like on it. Have you played Superbrothers Sword and Sworcery? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd really love to have a conversation about this game and what this game means to you. Did you play it originally when it came out, or did you play it when it came to Switch, or just maybe on one of the PC ports or Mac ports or Linux? Just leave a comment down below and we'll talk about it. Lastly, if you want more videos like this, be sure to subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. But until next time, I will be back with another video. Thank you so much for watching again, and have a great rest of your day.